computer, I guess.
Okay,
Want to end, you want to just mute.
You can leave meeting from in here.
and those of us who have cell phones, would you mute your cell phone?
Selfish, it's like the guided button. You want to see their face. I don't think so. That's not true. Oh, maybe we can. Oh, we can.
Are we okay now?
Yes, we're fine. Okay, so beginning with the reading from Henry Nouwen. This is on Tuesday, week 2 of Lent from his booklet. Hear and obey. Listen to my voice. This is Jeremiah 11:4. Listen to my voice and do all that I command you. So shall you be my people, and I will be your God. We are usually surrounded by so much inner and outer noise that it is hard to truly hear our God when he is speaking to us. We have often become deaf, unable to know when God calls us, and unable to understand in which direction he calls us. Thus, our lives have become absurd. In the word absurd, we find the Latin word surdus, which means deaf. A spiritual life requires discipline because we need to learn to listen to God, who constantly speaks, but whom we seldom hear. When, however, we learn to listen, our lives become obedient lives. The word obedient comes from the Latin word audere, which means listening. A spiritual discipline is necessary in order to move slowly from an absurd to an obedient life, from a life filled with noisy worries to a life in which there is some free inner space where we can listen to our God and follow his guidance. And then a quote, Jesus, open my ears and heart to hear your call so that today I will, and you can fill that in yourself. So this really hit me as very appropriate to what I wanted to share. Because at some point in my life, and I don't remember when, frankly, I'm getting too old and my memory is fading. But at some point in my life, I realized that the kind of life I was experiencing in my church did not allow itself a spiritual practice, something that intuitively I felt I needed. I needed to find some way to go deeper. And the traditional Protestant worshiping congregation, church, even as a pastor, did not offer that defined challenge, the defined sense of a practice, a way to go deeper. I found that way through my family. My brother, Jeff, who lives up in Rochester, has long been interested in various Eastern pursuits. He was doing Tai Chi and Qigong and became a member of the Zen community in Rochester, the Rochester Zen Center. And so as I was talking with Jeff, it became clear that he could lead me or point me in directions that I might be able to find a spiritual practice. And so I turned to a variety of Eastern traditions looking for what was appropriate for me. Down here in Ithaca, I visited the Tibetan Center and went there for a while, going to sitting services at the Tibetan Center. But after a while, I found that I was turned off by hearing words in Tibetan that I didn't understand at all. And I realized I just wanted silent meditation. And so I was sort of led to find the Zen Center up in Cornell that met for a sitting once a week. David Radin, about Roshi at the Ithaca Zen Center, was leading that. And so for quite a while, I went up to the Ithaca Zen Center sitting program at Cornell and found it quite meaningful. Even before that or after that, I forget which, I attended a 3 or 4 day sesshin down at the Zen Mountain Monastery down in the Catskills. And that was a profound experience for me to be in a 4 day sitting. And then we were invited here in this church to go down to the Wisdom School in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, to hear or to learn about the Wisdom School led by Cynthia Bourgeot. She was not there, but her videos were there each morning as our teacher. And I was just delighted to find a kind of meditation based practice that was basically born out of the Christian story. And so I felt that I was able to return fully to find and participate in a kind of meditative practice that was based in Christianity. That was a great joy to me. For I found that although Zen meditation spoke to me deeply, I did not have the same connection with Buddha that I have always had for Jesus. In my heart, I never left Jesus. So that's kind of just sort of in a nutshell, some of the ways that as an adult, I felt called to find a practice to go deeper. Not that I've always been very regular or faithful with it. I do the best I can, I guess. But nonetheless, it continues to be very important to me. So I just wanted to share that as kind of just sort of a story of how I found my way here to centering prayer, and I'm delighted to be part of a congregation where this is very seriously accepted and shared. So at that point, I'd like to talk a little bit then about the moving center, using the words of Cynthia Bourgeot. This is from her book, one of her foundational books, The Wisdom Way of Knowing, Reclaiming an Ancient Tradition to Awaken the Heart, by Cynthia Bourgeot. This was written back in well, I don't see it in here at any rate. It was written quite a while ago. Again, she identifies that there are 3 centers of awareness in our body. The moving center is one of these 3, in addition to the emotional center and the mind center. The moving center consists of 2 subsets: the instinctive center, which regulates the inner operational system of the body, and the moving center proper, which concerns our outward and voluntary interactions with the physical world through our 5 senses and in movement and rhythm. You might picture them as the hard drive and software, respectively, of our physical embodiment. In many spiritual traditions of the world, the body is viewed with fear and suspicion, considered to be the seat of desire, and at best a dumb beast that must be trained and brought into submission to the personal will. But what is missed here, and it is of crucial importance, is that the moving center also carries unique perceptive gifts. The most important, which is the capacity to understand the language of faith encoded in sacred gesture. Let me read that again. The important, which is the capacity to understand the language of faith encoded in sacred gesture. There's a famous story attributed to Russian Orthodox Archbishop Anthony Bloom, one of the contemporary world's outstanding spiritual teachers, that makes this point quite strikingly. A young man came to him for spiritual consultation, angry and distressed because he couldn't make any sense out of his Christianity. The dogma and theology seemed like so much bunk, and the creeds frequently made him furious. He yearned for a life of faith, but it all seemed like a huge wall without handholds. So what did Father Anthony suggest? The Archbishop listened intently and then made a rather surprising suggestion that the young man simply go home and make 100 full prostrations a day for a month. Now, in Orthodox practice, a full prostration is not simply bob and curtsy, as the genuflection tends to be in the West. One goes flat out on the floor, face down with arms outstretched, holds the position for at least a good long in and out breath, and then slowly rises to one's feet. The young man, puzzling but intrigued, carried out Father Anthony's program diligently. When he returned a month later, his eyes were glowing with faith, and the creeds no longer made him angry. The reason, as the Archbishop knew fully well, is that through the deep rhythmic gestures of bowing and emptying himself, the man came to understand something that could not be found in his mind. It lived in his body. In connecting with his body, he reconnected with the well springs of his faith. And he talks a little bit about the teacher Gurdjieff. Even more strikingly, however, this is Gurdjieff's profound contribution to the recovery of the wisdom tradition, is the realization that the most subtle lessons of the spiritual path are conveyed in gesture, not in words. There exists, in fact, an actual alphabet of gestures through which sacred knowledge has been traditionally handed down. When the young man in Anthony Bloom's story made his 100 prostrations a day, he was working intensely with a powerful character in this alphabet, the one that spells humility, self-emptying, adoration. These were the missing feeling tones he needed to find himself before faith could become anything more to him than just an empty concept. I'm skipping around a little bit. So you can see how the reverse spin on this puts our usual attitude about spirituality and the body, and how correct Anthony Bloom's intuition was. In the ancient language of wisdom, the moving center carries the affirming force. Its natural aptitude is for reaching out, embracing, making contact. So in terms of spiritual journey, trying to find faith through the intellectual center is something like trying to play the violin with a saw. It is simply the wrong tool for the job. This is one reason why all religious traditions have universally insisted that the religious life cannot be done with the mind alone. I think I'll stop there a little bit, for a little bit. What would be a faith gesture that is part of your growing up, part of the church? Barb just put her hands together. Anything else?
Sign of the cross.
Sign of the
Yeah.
cross.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else? When I was growing up as a teenager, I wanted my neighbor, who was a Roman Catholic, to take me to his church. And I was struck by bowing or kneeling, by kneeling. I thought that was really powerful. So that would be a sacred gesture. Anything else?
Another thing in Catholicism they do, I think before they read the gospel, is they do small crosses here, here, and here.
Okay.
Before, yeah.
That's the mind, the
And-
lips.
Yep, yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So in the, certainly in the Catholic faith and the Episcopal, there are the kneeling and bowing perhaps. Anything else?
In Judaism, there's davening, which is kneeling and then bowing.
Okay. Yeah. From the Zoom audience, anything comes to mind? You can unmute and share if you'd like. I don't see anybody sharing. Oh, Shelley.
Me too, I think.
Shelley.
So, one of the things that I kind of miss, although not like, I don't think about it a lot, but in the Presbyterian church that I went through junior high and high school, that we were our congregation, at least our church, our building, was intentionally absolutely simple. There were no fancy stained glass windows. There was a simple single wooden cross above the behind at the front of the church, and that was it. That was absolutely it. And I sometimes miss that simplicity. And I also remember the first English, the first public English mass that our town held, that our Catholic church held, and it was an ecumenical service. And I remember walking into that place filled with statues and pictures and icons, thinking they're going to die, they're going to go to hell. But I kind of miss that simplicity.
Okay. Josie and Adrian?
Yeah, growing up Catholic, we would genuflect. So when we would be in a church and we would be passing the Holy Eucharist on the altar, we were instructed to get down on one knee, sometimes on our way to kneeling, but usually genuflected, go down on one knee and then you come up. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else have something from your past growing up that strikes you as a sort of a body motion, a sacred movement that you have done or seen done that meant something to you? Louise?
Well, I'm a lifelong American Baptist, so Barb already did the bowing and prayer,
Mhm.
but I always thought standing when singing was
Okay,
a gesture.
sure. Standing up.
Bronwyn had something to say.
Bronwyn, you have to unmute.
It's interesting that you said that, Louise. I'm a lifelong American Baptist, and I was thinking, gosh, there really aren't a lot. But I was thinking about standing when somebody has died, and we stand in their honor, and just that simple act of standing and being kind of present in that moment and celebration of that person was important.
It's Debbie.
I was drawing a complete blank about anything in my early years until you mentioned standing, that we did. But that I don't recall any other movements. But when I discovered Sufism, there are a zikr is a movement. It's a movement of the head from one shoulder to the other, up and down to the heart and back up again. And there are all kinds of prayers that go, that have body movements that go with them. And I think that really released something that I hadn't experienced in this kind of stiffness of my early puritanical years.
Okay, Louise.
I did say standing to sing,
Mhm.
and the singing was kind of part of that.
Yeah.
Standing and then kind of the air going in and out, and it's a communal thing. I don't know,
And that's moving up also into the emotional center,
mhm,
the singing, the vibration,
mhm.
but that's part of it. And
But it strikes me that our tradition has a very strong, rich singing component.
And personally, I find that there are some hymns that really, I sing from the heart.
Yeah, right.
And when I was a chaplain at Longview, the residents there, they didn't want to sing new hymns.
Right.
They knew the ones they wanted to sing.
Rock of Ages.
That's great. Yay.
Sure,
Tony, can I throw in one more?
sure.
So this isn't from my youth, it's from this church, and I'm surprised nobody's mentioned it. It's the act of baptism.
Ah,
Oh,
Because that has huge, huge significance.
absolutely.
The immersion.
Hmm.
And that really involves,
Absolutely.
motion.
And it's a very bodily,
Yeah.
rather than sprinkling on the head, a very bodily experience.
Not only the motion, but the element of water.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
that the-
I would-
It's with water.
I would just like to add to Barbara's comment there is that So I grew up with like a little pat of water on the head, which really had, like a lot of things Presbyterian, is kind of devoid of emotional, like reach in the heart. It's just kind of like, you know, so that immersion is a big deal.
Yeah,
I think I've also heard Debbie talk about, as part of the baptism, that there, you know, she goes down and there's like a surrender by the person
dying
getting
and arising,
baptized.
yeah, sure.
So that again would be
Amy,
part
yeah,
of
Amy.
emotion.
Yeah. Who's sitting next to Bill? I recognize the voice.
Hey,
Meg. Hi, Amy.
Hi. I was thinking, that this is it's interesting that we take from Catholic traditions. I was thinking about passing the peace, and I didn't grow up with it, and we kind of did it in the last UCC church that I went to. It was just the people in your immediate vicinity. But when I came to First Baptist, the passing of the peace ended up, all over the church, people hugging. And I remember Rich Barron was doing the service once. He said, "That's enough peace." And I think we've, kind of cut back on that because we're such a gregarious congregation that we just spill over, and that could become the entire service, I think. But I think it speaks to the joyousness. And I was watching the Cynthia Bourgeot video that you all watched last Sunday, and she talks about embodiment as a part of spiritual connection with each other also. And she was talking about compassion, and how else do you develop and show compassion but through our interactions with each other. So I thought that was interesting.
Yes,
So interesting to think about the impact of the pandemic, how, you know,
Restricted.
interaction was so impossible, and what that did to us, with how it affected us.
so I think it's probably a good time to do some acts, some sacred acts of motion. And this is called the 6-part body prayer. And we're going to do it slowly and just kind of try to feel into what this means, and how, what it sort of lets you experience. And we'll do it 3 times together. I'll introduce it first, just to show you so we all understand. And so the first one is breathing up through our feet. We're feeling connected with the earth, that the earth is supporting us, or we're a part of the earth, we're grounded. And so that's the belonging, I guess. So we're basically bringing the air right up here into our middle section here of the hara. And so we do that. And then we bring our hands together, and this is, prayer, agasho. This is a sense of I am here, I am present, I am aware. And then out of thanksgiving, we bow and feel what it likes, what bowing, what is that about? And then we reach up, and I think to receive, and somehow all around of the reaching of the spirit, and taking that into our being, gratefulness, connecting. And we're bringing it right down here, and then we sense that we are filled right from below and from above. And here we are, that we're full of this energy, this spiritual life. And then we give it away. And so we give it to each other, and we're just letting it go. All right. And then we begin again. So those of you who are here, make a little more space for yourselves. Sit or stand as you're able, and we'll do this prayer together 3 times. Hands parallel to the floor, breathing in. Feel that energy. Now we give it away. Couple minutes, we're going to do the chant, be still and know that I am God. And as I lead this chant, I'm going to do it with a very low voice. I don't mean soft, I mean low. And why I'm doing that is because that is the way that the most vibration is produced. And so we do this chant, we want to be aware of the vibration that's happening in our vocal cords. Not so much the words of the chant, but just allow yourself to feel that vibration. And so we'll do that. But before that, I just wanted to share just a little bit of Cynthia Bourgeois' book, Heart of Centering Prayer, Non-Dual Christianity in Theory and Practice. Um, just a word about centering prayer. In introductory centering prayer workshops, this gentle, laissez-faire attitude towards thought is reinforced through a simple formula called the 4 R's. Resist no thought. So if a thought comes up, as it will, about every 10 seconds, don't resist it. Oh, retain no thought. Let it go. React to no thought. Return ever so gently to the sacred word as a reminder to just let it go. And then when you become aware of another thought, don't resist it, don't retain it, don't react, just return to the sacred word and let it go away. She writes in lesson 8, something which caught my attention, the fruits of centering prayer. Because most of us are interested in results or what's it in for me. And while that's probably a dangerous thing to talk about because we don't want to make it goal-oriented. The fruits of centering prayer are found in daily life. This well-worn refrain has been part of centering prayer introductory workshops from the beginning, and it's still one of the most valuable pieces of advice around. Over and over, people are reminded not to look for signs that this prayer is working for them in their subjective experiences during the prayer period themselves. Of course, these would be thoughts, and you'd have to let go of them. The place to look for results in what happens after you get up from your meditative cushion. As that gentle releasing motion you've practiced in centering prayer gradually works its way into your system, most people will typically begin to notice a greater spaciousness and flexibility in their daily life. And along with this, an improvement in their personal relationships. Often it's the people closest to you who pick up on these changes first. I still chuckle at the story shared by one of our original e-course participants when 1 week into the course, she suddenly noticed a huge sculpture of an eagle in flight, not 50 yards from the orthodontist's office, where she had been regularly taking her sons for several months. Has that sculpture always been there? She asked. Her younger son replied, Mom, you haven't seen it because you're usually in a big hurry to get us here on time. A centering prayer classic, and after just a week of sitting. Time does slow down when we stop trying to push the river. Another of my favorite fruits of centering prayer stories was shared by a fellow trainee in my own first centering prayer formation retreat more than a quarter century ago. A highly organized type A professor of psychology, recently retired as a department chair at a local university. She recounted how she had found an outlet for her energy by volunteering at a local homeless shelter. Before starting centering prayer, I could process 5 clients in an hour, she reported. Now I can only process 2. Okay. So we're going to do begin the chant, be still and know that I am God 3 times, and I'll ring the gong and we'll have about a 10-minute session of centering prayer. Be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that be still. Oh, be still. Normally the meditation would be slightly longer, but I wanted to leave a little bit of time if people had anything they wanted to share about their experience during this time together.
This, from this meditation, I sense a oneness here.
Speak a little louder.
Oh, sorry, thanks. I just sense a oneness
Mhm.
here in the room. And I sense a connection up there. In the heart.
Yeah. Prior to Zoom, we were doing some meditation in the,
Right,
in that
Yeah.
chapel there.
right.
And there's a difference between Zoom meditation and, it's good to be, I wish you could have been with us in the flesh, but certainly with it in the spirit, but anyway, gathering together and sharing our silence and our energies and our being is profound.
Yeah.
Yes. I read one place that the aura that each of us has projects out 15 feet from the human body.
I thought it was 3.
Pardon?
I thought it was 3.
Well, I read 15. I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe those were well-developed auras.
Over.
Powerful ones. But at any rate, usually we're not aware of that energy and feeling that unity, but as we gather in meditation, we are usually. And I think people spoke about it on Sunday as well, that being together in that shared space.
Even from here, it's calming.
Glad.
I'd like to piggyback on that. It was very calming, and there was a sense of deep settling down.
Mhm.
A very, very good thing to feel. Thank you.
Sure. Anything you experienced doing the body prayer in terms of the gesture that spoke to you or felt particularly poignant or real?
Well, it was just really good to move around and to be in sync with everybody. It felt like a small church service where we're in sanctuary and we're up and we're down and moving around and everything. So that was really nice. Thank you. Okay.
I appreciated the fact that you took time with the body prayer. I think it permeates better with more time.
You can experience each motion.
Yeah, and you kind of stop thinking a little bit about, okay, what am I gonna do next, There's a sweetness to it, I think, that the time allows.
Okay. Because each one has its own unique sense. This feels differently than this, there's a difference, yeah.
There's one part of the body prayer that for me feels a little bit different from how you were talking about it. And that's the part where we go from the belly outward. My sense is that what I've received with this motion is not and brought into my inner self. It's not mine to give away. It's, for me, it's more of letting it flow outward.
Mm.
So I'm not holding it in, I'm not hoarding it. It has this uninterrupted flow, comes in and it flows out and I get out of the way.
Okay,
This
great.
very natural kind of.
Louise.
I think Debbie said what I feel, but I will say that when I do the outward giving away and when I come up from the earth, I feel like the flow is coming when it comes up. I feel like it comes from the earth, like a sacred earth. It's a gift to us. And then the sky is a gift to us. And then it flows through. And I mean, I like to, when I'm on Zoom, I like to look at the people, but I also look outside you know, and feel like just sort of a connection that way.
This book Cynthia talks about the balancing of contemplation and action. And I think we're kind of talking
Yeah,
about that
I
in
think
a
so
way.
too. Yeah,
And that
that's good. Yeah.
if we can take time to go deep, to open up and receive, and then give it, there's a balancing. But if you try to just do the giving, being out without sort of, then that's burnout.
The other piece of it that I was more conscious of this time was not forgetting the connection to the feet. It's like the different parts of the prayer can become kind of separate units in themselves. And as I was, doing this or outward, I was reminding myself of my feet.
Ah, okay.
That was very helpful.
Yeah.
It's a whole.
It's probably best if we could go out and stand in the earth.
Yeah.
And bare feet and do that.
Yeah, and feel the
Yeah,
sunshine coming in.
right,
Yeah.
sure, right, wow.
I would love to be able to see us offer garden meditation this summer. sometime. I would like that
yes,
right around the eye
Great.
in the center. If anybody had an interest in doing that, I think
Sure.
that would be fun to do or
It's-
nice to do or something.
It's also a wonderful thing to do by the lake, by the water.
Oh, yeah,
You know,
yeah,
to
yeah.
have that breeze
That's a great
flowing.
idea.
From our Zoom people, anything else to share? We're almost at the end of our time together. Josie,
Just, just really grateful for this time together. We're on Zoom. We'd love to be with you here today, but that just wasn't going to work today.
and
But
both of you and enjoying
Yeah.
presence, so thank you.
great to be with everybody.
Well, shall we bow to each other and we'll
Yeah.
call an end? Jesus Christ.
Peace of Christ.
Peace
Jesus
of Christ.
Um,
Peace of Christ.
So we'll be back together a week from this Wednesday, a week from Wednesday, today.
A week
Well,
from today.
A week from today. Yeah.
Look forward to it. Bye, everybody. I'll turn off.
Bye, everybody. Bye. Thank you.
Is there a camera outside on the, or is there a picture of
Oh.
it?